For the last part of class, we're going to go ahead and continue talking about properties of logarithms. But again, these, just like the ones before it, you do not need to know the names. I repeat, you do not need to know the names, just how to use them. All right, so we have two here that we're going to look at, the power property of logarithms, as well as these inverse properties. Okay, so the power property, we're going to use a ton when we condense, expand, as well as solve logarithms. All right, so that says if you have a power on your argument, you can move it to the front and it multiplies times that logarithm. So we're using that a lot. The inverse properties, again, I don't really use these a whole lot, just because you can use other properties we've already discussed to do a lot of these things, but it's just going to be one of those things that helps you evaluate quicker if you can recognize these properties. So again, don't worry about the names, just how to use them. So let's look at letters A and B for example 3. So we want to express these two as a product, so that's going to be using the power property, and then to evaluate or simplify if possible. So the first one, we have a power of 2 on our argument, and we can move that to the front, and it's going to multiply. So 2 times the log base 5 of 25. So notice nothing's changed with the logarithm, but my exponent, my power that was on that 25, moves to the front, and it's multiplying times that logarithm. So we can actually evaluate this. Log base 5 of 25, so 5 to what power gives you 25? That is 2. And if we do 2 times that, we get 4. All right, so just a quicker way, a little help using the power property to simplify or evaluate. Same thing here. So we can move the 4 in front, and it multiplies. So 4 times the log of 10. Now, if you notice, we don't have a base here. So if there's no base, hopefully you remember that this is a common logarithm. So the base is in fact 10. And you should recognize this as a property from earlier on in this week, where if the base and that argument are the same, the log is going to always be equal to 1. So 4 times 1 is 4. All right, so that's how we use the power property to help us evaluate. All right, so let's look at these next two, A and B, for example 4. Again, you're going to see how I'm going to end up using, I'm not going to use the inverse properties per se, but if you do recognize that these are, in fact, the inverse properties, it goes quicker. So I would actually, again, use the power property here to move this 4 all the way to the front. So 4 times the log base 3 of 3. We just saw, just on the previous problem, that if those base and the argument are the same, it's 1. So 4 times 1 is 4. But if you know that this is actually just an inverse property, if those two bases are the same, then it's just going to be equal to that exponent. Again, that's why I don't really use the inverse properties. I more so just use the power property and my knowledge of logs to find the answer. Let's look at the last one, letter B. So this says 2, so a big base of 2, raised to an exponent, and in the exponent is a logarithm. All right, so I'm actually just going to look at the log base 2 of 8, and the log base 2 of 8 is 3s, because 2 to the third power is 8. So this becomes 2 to the third power, and you should know 2 to the third power is 8. So again, if you were to recognize that the base here is the same as this base in my logarithm, then it's just going to be equal to that argument of 8. So again, I can't stress it enough, the inverse properties are not that important in terms of they just help you go quicker if you recognize it. You should be able to evaluate or simplify all of these using those properties we already discussed. So I'm going to let you guys stand up, try these 5 at your boards. Again, I do want to stress, I want everyone, the sub's going to tell you, I want everyone to try number 5 once the sub tells you to try number 5, because this one is going to be a little bit of a challenge and you have to use a lot of different properties to expand it. All right, so go ahead and stand up and try those.